It was one small step for a minifigure, one giant Lego set for me. Hi, I'm Joe, and today's video is going to focus on this Lego set of the Lunar module, which is the ship that actually took the astronauts from the Apollo 11 command module down to land on the moon. And this video is publishing on July 20th because July 20th, 1969 was the day that man first walked on the moon when Apollo 11 landed and Neil Armstrong took the first steps. Unlike the model that we got with the Saturn V rocket, this model is much closer to minifigure scale. And there's a ton of detail packed in, so let's take a closer look at it. We'll start by looking at the base, which is the first of the 4 bags in this set. And essentially this is just a little vignette of the surface of the moon. And you can see we've got a moon crater here. We also have 2 minifigures. They are both identical on the outside, but they do have faces on the inside. It's just the regular standard Lego head face, and we've got some nice detail here on the uniform. And we can see that the model leaves us intentionally a few open squares. Those are supposed to represent the footprints left on the moon, because the moon has no atmosphere and therefore no wind, so those footprints will not be disturbed this day. The model also leaves us a place to put the flag, which is represented with a sticker on this Lego piece with the clips. And we get the second astronaut, which I've just put off to the side to keep him out of the way. The lunar module isn't attached to the base in any way, so you can pick it up and fly it around nice and easy. But there are 4 circles at each corner of the base that match up to where the legs would land, just as if the model was landing on the moon. In fact, one of the first comments that Neil Armstrong made as he got out of the lunar module was noting that the foot pads of the module only sunk into the lunar dust about 1 or 2 inches. Looking closer around the lunar module, we do have some sticker details here. There are quite a few stickers actually, but these pieces here, and they're the same on all 4 corners, those are actually drum lacquered gold, same as the feet of the module. Some of these sections actually open up to show something on the inside. I know over here on one side, you can pull that down and you've got like the cassette piece there, and that little subassembly is supposed to represent the camera. This here is the only leg that has a ladder on it, and the camera was designed to be opened up, so you actually got the video of Neil Armstrong coming out of the module, which has its doors up here at the top, and you actually see those first footsteps on the moon. If I close this back up, we see some more of the other stickers, and those are the only 2 of the sides that actually have stickers on them. Here around the other side, we have another module that will open, or maybe it won't. Here around the back, we have the other panel that actually opens up and shows us a reflector here. This is meant to represent a reflector that the astronauts left on the moon so that people from Earth could shoot lasers up to the moon and time the reflection, and therefore prove that a man-made object has been left on the surface of the moon. The legs also have some drum lacquered pieces in drum lacquered silver, and it has all these ball joints that make it look like that this model could actually like crawl around and the legs could fold up, but actually all these pieces do is make sure that the legs are extended at exactly the right angles so that it fits on the base. Here in the top part of the module, we've got all of these little, looks like megaphone pieces all over the place, but I believe that actually represents the thrusters that help the ship actually orient itself in every direction, so you can orient the ship in the right way to get it to go in the right direction. We have some satellite dishes and some other wiry pieces up there that I'm sure are meant to represent antennas. At the top here would be the hatch that actually connects to the command module for Apollo 11, which was Columbia on that particular mission. The lunar module itself was given the name Eagle, which is why when it landed on the moon, Neil Armstrong called out, "Tranquility Base here, the Eagle has landed." And we do have doors here that they do open, but we can't really see inside, but we do have better ways of doing that. Before we start looking on the inside, I do want to show you the bottom here. The engine is shown at the bottom, and this part of the module is called the descent stage, where the module would start its descent toward the lunar surface after it was in orbit by firing the descent engine, essentially slowing its orbit so that it falls down, although at a reduced rate because the moon only has 1/6 of the Earth's gravity. And eventually, this engine would be the primary way that the lunar module would slow itself down so that it soft lands on the moon. One thing that's not depicted here on the lunar module is the way that the ship worked when they were descending towards the moon is that there were little wires at the end of the feet that extended about 6 feet down from the feet. And when they made contact with the lunar surface, that triggered a light inside the cockpit, and they would shut the engine off because the whole module could fall from 6 feet in the air and still land safely. Now, the upper part of the module, which should disconnect fairly easily, is the ascent stage. It has its own engine, and this is the only part of the module that actually returns to the command module when the astronauts leave the surface of the moon. And this separates nice and easily in the module, and it gives us a way to get a better look on the inside of what is in this module. And that is where I can take, about took the wrong part off, I can take this side off and we can see inside. Now, there's not a whole lot going on in here as far as room. You've definitely got a lot of dials and gadgets and knobs and everything on the walls. Those are all stickers. There are a couple of places where you've got studs on the bottom where you can fit both astronauts in here. And there were no seats on the lunar module due to the low gravity. They didn't need seats, and seats were left out of the design of the lunar module to save weight. And to get an even better look inside the module, we can actually take the other side off as well. Looking through the inside from this angle gives us a better idea of what the astronauts were looking at while they were piloting the lunar module, because we can see up in the top corners. It's kind of hard to see from the inside, but if we turn it around, you can see these are the actual windows that they looked out while they were piloting the module. And while the Lego module here, that's a 2x6 windshield piece that's just covered up by all these gray pieces, the real lunar module just had 2 triangular windows. And that's all they had to look at the lunar surface around them as they were picking out their landing spot. If you haven't seen the miniseries From the Earth to the Moon, it's episode 5 named Spider, which is all about the development of the lunar module and all the trial and error that went into creating what actually flew to space. But it explains that, first of all, they need to save weight. So keeping windows as small as possible would help save weight, because making glass thick enough to survive the vacuum of space was very heavy. But that episode also explained how the triangular windows actually still gave the astronauts a good enough field of vision to be able to fly the craft. So if we turn back around and look from the inside, you could see the astronauts actually stood while they flew the lunar module. And the panel in the middle is supposed to represent like the computer and other guidance information. And the doors below, I'm not sure how accurate that is to the actual lunar module, but at least on the Lego module, that's how the astronauts get out of the module and onto the surface of the moon. Thanks for stopping by to check out my video about the lunar module. This isn't my favorite of the Lego models based on space exploration, but part of that is the nature of the subject, because the lunar module is not exactly a beautiful model or a beautiful ship. It was entirely created for function over form, which is why you've got all these odd angles everywhere. But I am glad that I have it. There are some neat building techniques. The build itself was not as fun as the Saturn V rocket. Part of that is this is an over 1,000-piece model, but there were only 4 numbered bags, and you had a lot of repetitive steps like putting all these gold tiles on all 4 corners. You have all the stickers to put on. One last thing I did forget to mention is underneath the ladder, there is one more sticker I forgot to show, and it's this one here, which of course will be left on the surface of the moon. And it is supposed to be the plaque that indicates that here, men from the planet Earth set foot on the moon, July 1969, along with the map of the world. And I believe the inscription also said, "We came in peace for all mankind." So while the build wasn't terribly fun, I do believe this model was a must-own for me and my love of the Apollo space program. And continuing on with the Apollo program, the next model, which I will be showing in a video in about a week and a half, will continue the theme of lunar exploration. So please be sure to come back for that. But until then, remember, today is a good day to build.